Namaskar students. Today we will read the prose God sees the truth but waits. Let's start. God sees the truth but waits. How would you feel if you were punished for a crime which you had not committed? And how would you feel if you later met the man who had actually committed that crime? Here is the story of one such person. Read it and see how he feels. Would you feel the same way if you were in his place? Long ago, there lived in Kiev, a small Russian town, a young merchant named Ivan. He had two shops and a house of his own. He was a handsome fellow and very fond of singing. In his early youth, he was given to drinking and would become riotous when he drank too much. But after he had married, he gave up drinking, except now and then. One summer, a big fair was going to be held in a distant town. Even Even too wanted to go there to sell his goods. He made all preparations for it. But just before he was going to start, his wife said to him, "Ivan, do not start today. I had a bad dream last night. I dreamt that when you returned home and took off your cap, your hair had turned all grey." Ivan laughed and said, "That's a lucky sign. It means I shall earn huge profits and become a rich man." So he said goodbye to his family and drove away in his horse cart. On the way, on the way, he met a merchant whom he knew. They put up at the same inn for the night. They had some tea together and then went to bed in adjoining rooms. I was not Ivan's habit. Sorry, it was not Ivan's habit to sleep late. Wishing to travel while it was still cool, he harnessed his horse before dawn. Mid restarted his journey. When he had gone about 25 miles, he stopped at an inn to rest a while. Suddenly, a troika drove up and a police officer alighted, followed by two constables. He came to Ivan and started questioning him. "Where did you spend last night? Were you alone or with a fellow merchant? Did you see the other merchant this morning? Why did you leave the inn before dawn? Why do you question me as if I were a thief or a robber?" Ivan asked. "I am the police officer of this district," said the officer. "I question you because the merchant with whom you spent last night had been robbed and killed. His throat has been found cut with a knife. We must search all your things." The constable untrapped Ivan's luggage and searched it. Suddenly, they found a blood-stained knife in Ivan's bag. "What is this?" cried the officer. Ivan saw that the knife was not his. He knew nothing about it. He also said that he had not seen the merchant after having tea with him at night. But his face grew pale and he trembled with fear as though he were guilty. The police officer ordered the constables to bind Ivan and put him in the troika. His money and goods were taken from him. Enquiries were made in Kiev about his character. People of the town said that in former days he used to drink and riot, but that he was a good man at heart. Ivan was tried in a court. He was charged with murdering a fellow merchant and stealing his 20,000 rubles. Ivan's wife was in despair. Taking her two little children with her, she went to the town where her husband was kept in jail. At first, at first, she was not allowed to see him, but after much begging, she obtained permission from the officials. When she was taken to him, she wept and said, "Now you see my dream was meaningful. You should not have gone to the fair that day. Dear Ivan, I am your wife. You must tell me the truth. Was it really not you who did it? So you too suspect me?" said Ivan. He hid his face in his hands and began to weep. Soon the warder came to say that the or wife and children must leave as the time for the meeting was over. When they had left, Ivan was mad to think that his wife also suspected him. Only God knows the truth, he said to himself. It is from him alone that justice can be expected, and to him alone would I appeal for mercy. So Ivan made no petition for mercy and gave up all hope. He prayed to God alone. Ivan was condemned to be flogged and then sent to work in the mines of Siberia. He was flogged, and when the wounds made by the whip were healed, he was driven to Siberia with other convicts. For 26 years, Ivan lived as a convict in Siberia. His hair had turned white as snow, and his beard had grown long and grey. His body was bent with age and weakness. He walked slow and spoke very little. He never laughed, he prayed all the time. The prison authorities liked Ivan for his humility and good behavior. The fellow prisoners respected him and called him Grandpa. And when there was any quarrel among the prisoners, they came to him to settle the matter. During all these long years, no news reached Ivan from his home. He did not even know if his wife and children were dead or alive. One day, some new convicts were brought to the prison. In the evening, the old prisoners collected round the new ones and asked them what towns or villages they came from and for what crimes they had been sentenced. Ivan also sat there, listening with downcast eyes. One of the new convicts was a tall, strong man, about 50 years old. Telling others about himself, he boasted, "Well, friends, I have visited this place a couple of times earlier also, but I have never stayed long. This maker Semonis of Kiev was not born to stay behind the bars. The, they forget it every time they bring me here." Hearing this, Ivan raised his head a little. He looked at the man and said, "Dear sir, do you know anything of a merchant named Ivan who lived in Kiev?" Is his family still alive? Yes, of course, they are a rich family, though their father is here in Siberia. But, Grandpa, what brought you here? My sins brought me here, sighed Ivan. What, si- what sins? Asked Maker Semonis. Ivan remained silent, but his companions narrated the story of Ivan's misfortune. They told the newcomers how someone had killed a certain merchant and placed the knife among Ivan's things, and how Ivan was unjustly condemned. When Maker hears this, he looked at Ivan, laughed aloud, and exclaimed, "Well, this is wonderful, really wonderful. But how old you have grown?" Ivan began to wonder if this man knew who had killed the merchant actually. "Maker," he said, "have you heard of that murder?" How could one help hearing? The whole world was talking of that. "Perhaps you heard who killed the merchant?" asked Ivan. Maker laughed and said, "It must have been he in whose bag the knife was found. If someone else hid the knife there, he was not a thief till he was caught. And how could anyone put knife into your bag while it was under your head? It would surely have woken you up." When Ivan heard these words, he had no doubt that this was the man who had killed the merchant. But he said nothing, got up, and went away. All that night, Ivan lay awake. He was terribly upset. All sorts of images rose in his mind. There was the image of his wife as she was when he parted from her to go to the fair. Then he saw his children, quite little as they were at that time, and then he remembered the place where he was flogged. Each moment of the past 26 years in prison came back to his mind. His anger against Maker was so great that he pined for revenge, even if he himself had to die for it. He kept repeating prayers all night, but could get no peace. A fortnight passed in this way. One night, as Ivan was walking about the prison, he noticed some art rolling out from under one of the shelves on which the prisoners slept. He stopped to see what it was. Suddenly, Maker crept out from under the shelf. He looked up at Ivan with a frightened face. Ivan tried to pass without looking up at him, but Maker seized his hand and told him that he had dug a hole under the wall. Every night he dug out some earth, put it in his high boots, and emptied it out the next day on the road when the prisoners were driven out to their work. "Old man," said Maker, "just keep quiet, and you shall get out too. If you blab, they will flog the life out of me, but I will kill you before that." Ivan trembled with anger as he looked at his enemy, but he said only this: "I have no wish to escape, and you have no need to kill me. You killed me long ago, and as for reporting about this act of yours, I may or may not, as God shall direct me." Next day, when the convicts were let out, it was noticed that some prisoner had emptied a lot of art out of his boots. The prison was searched and the tunnel found. The jailer came and questioned all the prisoners to find out who had dug the hole. They all denied any knowledge of it. At last, the jailer turned to Ivan and said, "You are a truthful old man. Tell me who has dug this hole." Ivan's lips and hands trembled. For a long time, he could not utter a word. For a long time, he could not utter a word. Why should I save him who has ruined my life? He thought. Why should he not suffer for what he has done? But if I tell they will flog him to death, what good shall it bring to me? Well, old man, repeated the jailer, tell me who has been digging this tunnel under the shelf. Ivan glanced at Maker and said, "Your Honor, it is not God's will that I should tell. You can do with me what you like." The jailer tried his best, but Ivan would say no more, and so the matter had to be left at that. That night, when Ivan was lying on his shelf, someone came quietly and sat down by his side. Ivan peered through the darkness and saw it was Maker. "What more do you want from me?" asked Ivan. "Why have you come here? Go away, or I will call the guard." "Ivan, forgive me." "What for?" "It was I who killed the merchant and hid the knife in your bag. I meant to kill you also and take your money. But just then there was some noise outside. So I hid the knife in your bag and escaped through the back window." Ivan was silent. He did not know what to say. Maker bowed his head to the ground and said, "Ivan, forgive me. I will confess that it was I who had killed the merchant, and you will be released. Then you can go home and live with your wife and children." "I have nowhere to go," replied Ivan calmly. "Forgive me, Ivan," said Maker. "When they flogged me, it was not so painful as it is now to see you. I was the ruin of your life, yet you took pity on me and did not tell. For Christ's sake, forgive me, Ivan." And he began to sob. "God will forgive you," said Ivan. "We must all bow to God's will." As Ivan said these words, he felt very light at heart. He no longer had any desire to leave the prison or go home. He only wanted his last hour to come peacefully. In spite of what Ivan had said, Maker went to the jailer and confessed his guilt. But when the orders for Ivan's release came, he was already dead. Thank you.